Hi there, welcome once again to Stewards of Grace. My name is Joseph Bimbo Akinjepo. The role of a woman in the divine scheme of things cannot in any way be underrated. Just like it was a woman that the enemy used as his access point to enter the world with sin. And it was also a woman that God used as the access point to bring salvation onto the world. God wants us to understand that the role of a woman is not one that we can sweep under the carpet. It is therefore important for us to know and understand this role and be able to deploy it effectively if the purpose of God and his agenda for mankind will be realized in its full measure. Today, we are looking at the mentorship of women. And my guest today is one that is very much experienced in this field. She is an author, a public speaker, and also a life coach. She is one that has been in the women ministry for nearly 2 decades. She is a wife and also a mother. And I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to receive value for time by the value of wisdom that she's going to be releasing during the course of this interview. Join me in welcoming to Stewards of Grace, Mrs. Efe Fagbeja. You're very much welcome, ma.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us on Stewards of Grace.
For having me. Thank you.
You know, the question I'm going to start with is going to sound very funny, but I will want you to answer it nonetheless. Because 10 years ago, this kind of question would have been very strange. But it's important that we address it today. Who is a woman?
Just like you said, sir, it's a very important question because of the direction in which the world is going today. So without any form of equivocation, I'm going to state categorically that a woman is a person who was born with 2 X chromosomes at birth. She was given 2 X chromosomes at birth. That was what was in her genetic makeup. That is who a woman is.
In fact, thank you so much that you said that, because nowadays someone will tell you that a woman is determined by the way you feel, and a woman is determined by some of the things that you take, the path that you choose to, completely removing the divine definition, that's God's definition of who a woman is, and confuses things. So I think it's important that we establish that first and foremost. But now that we have done that, I've seen a couple of your works in trying to help women reach their full potential, being able to do that which God prepared or designed that they should do, and also who he wants them to be. How important is the role of a woman in the society?
The first thing I'll say about that, and I'll just call it my why. Why do I do it? Because I think in explaining why I do it, it will also answer the question. Is that I believe that for too long, women have defined themselves by what the popular opinion says, or the going opinion at that time says. Some say, oh, women, during an era, they'll say women should be seen and not heard. Women should be at the background in some cultures. Today, the feminist voice is becoming louder, and people are saying, oh, women are strong. There was a time they were saying that what a man can do, a woman can do better. There have been all sorts of voices. The important thing for us to understand is that there are 2 genders. There's the male and there's the female. We can't even talk about equality because you can't even weigh it. They're just different. Without women, there can be no procreation. A man on his own cannot procreate, just like a woman on her own cannot procreate. We need, people are beginning to talk about feminine energy and male energy. In a family, if you cannot successfully raise children with just one perspective, because the way a woman thinks is different. The perspective she brings to anything she's doing or she brings to any matter is different from the perspective a male brings to it. The way men and women are wired are very, very different. And so it's about coming together two different genders coming together to be able to achieve societal goals, to achieve well-balanced societies. You can't, if you had, I have 2 sons and 2 daughters, and maybe the first time I had one son, or a daughter first, then a son. I mean, the first time I thought, it was just happenstance. But I had to do it all over again. Then I had another daughter and I had another son. And they're just different in the way they wire things. If I give any of my sons, when they were young, if I give them a teddy bear, the first thing they want to do is try and take it apart, see how does it work, what's inside it, how does it work. My daughters, the first thing they want to do is nurture that toy. They want to see, can I back it? Can I, the way they've seen women do, can I back this toy? Can I, mommy, I want to join you in cooking. Mommy, I want to be just like you. These come from the girls. The boys, yes, they express their love, they express their admiration, but it's not like I want to be like you.
Yeah.
It's just different. We and so you can't, it's like, and globally they say that women form about 49.6% of the global population, while men are the other 51.6%. 50.4%, sorry. And at the end of the day, that means it's almost equal, really. You cannot do away with half of the population or say they don't need to thrive just so that one gender can thrive. If you hide one gender, the world is going to be very disbalanced or imbalanced. Sorry, I made up that word. It's going to be very imbalanced. It's going to be very imbalanced. And there's just that thing that females bring. Number one, but most importantly, you can't even have a world of people with only one gender. So you cannot have just men in the world. Just the same way you cannot have just women in the world. There will be no further procreation. There will be no further progress. And I think that's just a basis to say that men bring different things and women bring different things. I think that's the fundamental
things. Okay, ma. Now, let's look at this issue about the difference between women, or let's start with girls and boys. Is it that automatically every girl child is subject to the male? Or when we say submit, that's to tell a woman to submit to her husband, is that only within the context of marriage? Can a woman compete and excel over a man, of course, that she's not married to now? A girl child, can that child be greater than a boy child, or is always a girl child is always subject to the male child? Okay,
so my own perspective is that whenever people ask me this question, I say that we have to start with what the worldview of the people discussing the matter is. Because it all goes back to the beginning. Why were boys created? Why were women created? And what was the plan of the person who created them? So there's no how we can have the discussion without bringing God into the matter and God and his agenda, because he's the one that created. Some people believe we just appeared. If you believe we just appeared, then your answer will go in that. I've heard all sorts of answers. But because I'm starting based on the worldview that God created us, there's a God who created us, and the Bible tells us why he created each gender. Now, the Bible is very clear about submission. The word submission in regard to a woman is always ever used only in regard to her own husband. Outside that, every person is a person. The Bible even says, Paul went as far as saying, in Christ there is neither male nor female, Greek, Jew. So racism is excluded, genderism or whatever you understand is excluded. All that is excluded when it comes to Christ. When we're talking about people, we're talking about people. Be a whole, complete human being on your own. You can do whatever you like. It's only when we begin to talk about the context of marriage that we talk about submission. In fact, the way the Bible puts it in some places, you say, and let every woman be in subjection to her own husband. Not somebody else's husband, her own.
Not all men.
Not all men.
Yeah, that's very important, because there are a lot of people who raise their girl child with this mindset that one day you are going to be subject to one man, which may not be bad in the sense if you are preparing her for the marriage unit. But many of them, the way they raise the child is that the child is subject to every male child. I had an argument with someone a while ago, and he insisted that it's the way a girl should be raised subject to the boy. So I think I would love if you can still shed a bit more light on that, because it will help the girl that is being raised in a wrong way, and also the man that is raising the girl in a wrong way to be subject to all men.
So, having said that, what I said about each person being an individual, we also have to understand that there are roles for each person in the family. And now, I've had a discussion with someone where she said, oh, the reason why we have traditional roles is because in the old days, we had the work that was required was more masculine. So people were going to fight wars, hunting, farming, it was all masculine. So men used to go out to do that while the women stayed at home. And then, but now the work is more cerebral, so anybody can do it. So we don't have to have those traditional roles anymore. But that's a misnomer. That's still a misnomer.
Yeah.
Even though it tends to support the fact that women and men can both do the same thing, but it's still a misunderstanding, because that's not the reason why men and women develop traditional roles or not. Women are nurturers. It's part of why we have issues with pay inequality and all that. Women are nurturers. No matter what, if you have a lady and a man, two young people who started their career together at exactly the same age, at some point, if they both get married, that woman is going to have to take time off to nurture her family, to have a baby. And when she has the baby, it's going to conflict with her work. She may have to take off extra time. It's not just about having the baby.
Yeah.
It's about nurturing the baby, because a baby cannot survive on its own.
Yeah.
So somebody is going to have to stay with that baby. And because the woman is the incubator, it just makes more sense for her to stay and nurture that child to the age where you can now maybe hand over the child to school or something, and then they can continue with formal education, and you don't have to be there all the time. So you'll find out that women will function in certain roles within the family more than men. And men will function in other roles. So you find women functioning in terms of housekeeping, taking care of the home, taking care of the children, that kind of thing. And they are better wired for it, really. And you find men functioning in terms of protection, because they have more physical strength, functioning in terms of provision, because they will not have a break to go and have a baby. So they can take on that responsibility. It is the way God made it. We have to understand that. If when we try and turn it upside down, things go all right. Now, there are issues that come out of it. Does not change what the right thing, the ideal thing should be. And so we find men function in different areas within a marriage or within a family setting from women. And we have to prepare our children for the roles that they are going to function in. Now, that does not mean that when I'm raising my kids, my boy should not be able to cook and my girl should be able to cook. That's not what it means. Cooking is a survival skill. It does not mean that, it does not mean that my girl should be raised with the mentality that there will always be a man to provide my needs. No. Everybody needs to have an income. Everybody needs to have an income, whether you are working from home or you're working from outside. Technology has made it easier, but every woman has to have a source of income. Why? Things happen. It's not even about abuse now. That's a different case altogether. But what if the husband dies? Then what? Or he loses his ability to provide? Then what? Every adult, no adult should depend on another adult wholly for income. So it doesn't change the things I'm teaching the child. But in teaching them those things, I also have to teach a girl child who is going to get married, how to submit, for example. Because it's not an easy thing. You're taking all your strength, all your training, all your ability, intelligence, and putting it under the leadership of somebody willfully. It's not an easy thing. So I'm going to have to teach her how to play that role effectively. I'm going to have to tell her about how to achieve that balance when that time of conflict comes between your career and your family. I'm going to have to teach her how to handle those things. I'm going to have to teach her how to handle it when you are carrying everybody else's stress and it's like you're losing yourself. I have to teach her how to understand, how to think about those things, prepare my girl child for those things. And I have to, or boy, not me, but I'm saying as parents.
Yes. Yeah.
As a parent, I have to raise my boy child to understand that you are going to be responsible for lives very soon. You're going to be leading a family. How do you intend to do it? You can't just sit down and be laid back. You understand? I'm going to have to teach them that. I'm going to have to teach them that you are going to be providing. You can't be thinking about yourself. You know, you have to think of everybody's needs and wants. You know, so those two, but there are certain skills that are life skills.
Yeah.
What the difference in how they should be raised has more to do with how they think of their role in the family. But in terms of skills and abilities, every little helps. A girl child that understands how to take care of money, financial intelligence, and all makes it easier makes that home better. Whichever home she's going to be. A man who can do domestic work, it makes that home better because when his wife is stressed, he can take it on. You know, so it's not about the physical skills, it's about the thought process. That's where the difference should be.
Wow, that's very profound. Now, focusing on the women now, young women to be precise. When we look at the story of Adam and Eve, when the enemy was going to come in, like I mentioned in the introduction, he came in through Eve. And I see that it was quite easy for the serpent to manipulate Eve to do what she ordinarily should not do. How important is it for a young woman to have that capacity, that is the wisdom to discern good from evil? Now, not in the context of the tree of knowledge of good and evil now. I'm talking about the kind of evil that is in the world that we are in and know how to respond to it correctly. How important is it for a young woman to not be naive and be wise?
In fact, if I could say it is 1,000%, 10,000%, you know, I don't know the highest number we have, but it is very, 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 very important because the ignorance of one adult, I mean, they'll say a team is as strong as its weakest link because all an enemy has to do is get to that weakest link, break that link, as we saw in the case of Adam and Eve, and then they have access. So your weakest link should be so strong that it is impenetrable. So as young women, it's very sad to me that too many young women have been we've society defines young women. I've been there. I'm not. What woke me up was that I didn't have mentors myself. There was nobody I was talking to. I had a lot of women around me, older women, but it was just to watch them. You couldn't ask questions. They were not talking about the difficult issues. And so people find themselves in certain situations and they don't even know what to do because they were not prepared. That's the worst thing that can happen to anybody, to get to a place and not be prepared for what is going to meet you there. So I remember having a conversation with a young lady one time and telling her that, do you know that as a wife, you're going to reach a point, because she was a career woman, you're going to reach a point where your career will conflict with your duties at home. She said, no, it doesn't have to. She has seen many women who have it all, blah, blah, so to speak, who have it all. They have great careers, they have great families. And I was like, okay, no problem. It got to that point. At a point, she actually resigned from that job and said, you know what? I can't. Because
she was not prepared.
Exactly. You are not listening to the fact that if you have people ahead of you telling you that this is what you need to be prepared for, you will be able to plan better. You'll be able to plan better. We can't afford to be naive. We can't afford to be silly. I've heard young ladies do the stupidest things. Why? Because we are leaving ourselves to be defined. We are leaving the guys to get the intelligence and now say, okay, define what intelligence is. A young lady got pregnant because her wife, the guy who was a pastor, they were both young, the teenagers. Maybe the boy was 19, she was 17. Told her that it cannot happen the first time. You cannot get pregnant the first time. And she knows nothing. So she went along with it. She could not stand up to it. And she went along with it. And she got pregnant.
Wow.
Now, my question is, they are 19. Who suffers? If the guy is very, very honorable, he will accept the pregnancy.
Yeah.
But it is your life as a young lady that is disrupted.
Yeah.
It is you that will have to stop school for a while, because no matter what, even if your parents say we'll take the baby, for that maternity period, you may have to stop school.
Yeah.
If you decide to take the other way and go and have an abortion, whose body? Who bears the risk of death? Who bears the risk of infertility later? And if the guy even say, okay, as I've seen some families, they push both of you, go and marry. Maybe you are old enough, go and marry. Who is going to suffer? The man will go out and he has to work, and his life is continuing. So it is because he will look for a job. He will have bumps, but he's growing. You are stuck at a period where you should be building yourself. You're now stuck raising a life. But we have to, most young people, they just think of the pleasure. But girls and women suffer the consequences the most. And so and that's what we are seeing in society. Single parenthood is a major disruptor to society. Boys who have no fathers, children who have no fathers, but especially boys. Because a woman cannot successfully raise a boy alone. I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but I wholly stand by it. A woman cannot successfully raise a boy alone. Because children look at people who are like them.
Yeah.
So if you want a boy to learn how to be a man, it's going to learn from another man, not from you, who is a man. So you cannot be the mother and the father. You can only be the mother. The most he can learn from you is how not to be a man. Maybe how to treat a woman. But to learn to be a man, he has to learn it from another man. So we have a lot of single parents. Why? Because one girl took a stupid decision because she could not stand, she did not know anything. She was either naive or she could not stand her ground. I've met even older ladies, especially. Anyway, let me just put it there. I wanted to go.
I'm so happy about the way you are really addressing. You are hitting the nail on the head, because a lot of young people think they know it all, and in actual fact, they don't. And it's not the problem is not that they don't. The problem is that they think they do when they don't. So in what ways can young women actually have access to this wisdom that will help them navigate the course of their life successfully?
Well, for one thing, first and foremost, you must know God by yourself. You must. No, you cannot. I mean, today we have different kinds of phones. It's not the knowledge that you used to run a Samsung that you used to run an iPhone. And even amongst the Androids, there are different types of Androids. If you want to understand a product fully, go back to the manufacturer of that product. If God created us, he created us generally for purpose, but he has a specific purpose for each person. You must know God for yourself. It's not about my pastor said. It's not about my husband said. When you stand on judgment, you will stand by yourself. Your husband will stand by himself. You cannot be following. You won't. A lot of women like to hide behind the men in their lives. This is what I was told. This is what I was taught. You can't do that, unfortunately. So you have to know God. It starts with knowing God for yourself. After knowing God, the Bible says something very interesting, that no longer shall your teachers, but at the time when God's blessing will start to come upon you, in Isaiah, he begins to mention one of the things that he said will happen is that no longer will your teachers be hidden from you. But you will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way to go, walk in it. He'll begin to send you your teachers. Don't run away from mentorship. You cannot know it all. I tell my kids, because I have teenage kids, and I tell them that I understand what you're saying. Every teenager, every child gets to a point where they feel I know it better than my parents. And I don't have a problem with that. You may actually know it better than me. And that's even my prayer. That my child will, my ceiling will be the floor for my child. Go ahead of me. Fly. But Yorubas have a saying that a child may have as many clothes as an adult. They cannot have
as many
rags. And I tell my children too, one of the things I tell them is that take care of your rags. You can't use your clothes as rags. When I want to mop in the house, I look for the old torn clothes to use. If I leave it there and I don't take care of it, I don't wash it, before you know what's happening, all the rags will be gone. And I'll be looking for, will I take my fresh, clean clothes to use as rags? I can't. So even a rag has its place.
Yeah.
So young people have to understand that, yes, so you may be smarter than me, you have 4 degrees, whatever it is. But one thing, I tell my kids, I had a 30-year head start on you. It counts for something.
Yeah.
Even if it's the stupid things I did in those 30 years, please learn from me and don't do them. It's very important to have mentors. There are 3 levels of relationship that I feel are very important. I'm going to mention them because I feel like nobody can really grow without having these 3 levels, and especially for ladies too. The first one is what I've spoken about with mentors. Don't run away from teachers. Don't run away from mentors. Number 2, have peers, people who are on the same level as you. Meaningful pair relationships. You must have them. Don't be a lone wolf. Don't be a lone wolf. I don't have many close friends, but I have 2 best friends. And there are some decisions. I remember the countless times they've saved me from taking very stupid decisions. And I'll just be like, this is what I want to do. And they'll be like, are you all right? They'll just talk some sense back to you. But they're godly friends. I can trust their judgment because I know where we both come from. When they also want to do things, they will call me, they will ask, what do you think? And I'll be like, why don't you consider it this way? Why don't you consider it that way? And that will be the changing point. The 3rd level is to have mentees, people who you are also teaching.
Pouring into.
Yes.
So
because
mentors, peers, and
mentees. Yes, you must have. And that's the model the Bible teaches. It said these things that I've taught you, deliver also to faithful men who will also be able
teach
to
them
teach
and
others.
To others.
So that's the biblical model. You learn from someone. You have friends that you discuss it with, that you are learning together and growing together. And then you have people that you are pouring into. It also saves. And, well, I can share this because I've said it many times. So I have 2 generations of children.
Yeah.
There's a 10-year gap.
And 2 surprises.
Yes, I call them 2 children and 2 surprises.
Yeah.
So there's a 10-year gap between the first set of children and the second set of children. When I found out I was pregnant with my last born, that's the second of the second generation.
Yeah, the second of the second set.
I was not in the country. And I was shocked. As in, because the first child, I was still trying to overcome it, and okay, I'm going to deal with it. I'm going to take it in my stride. When they say David encouraged himself in the Lord, I encouraged myself in the Lord. And I'm like, no, don't worry. Your goals are valid. You will achieve. I motivated myself. And it was part of that. I went for a course that I got a scholarship in the UK. And I left my 10-month-old baby behind, only to get there and find out I was pregnant. There was nobody there. I was the only one. I took a test at home and I found out I was pregnant. And there was nobody that I knew. Nobody. Not my husband. Nobody. And my first instinct was, I'm going to abort this baby. I can't do it. I can't do this. I'm going to get an abortion.
It's important you say this so that people who are tempted know that even righteous people get tempted.
Yes. I said it. And I was very serious about it. Because when I take the kind of person when I take a decision, I take the decision. I've made up my mind. But the only thing I'll do is research before I give space before I act, because I want to weigh all the options very well. So I went out, I did a lot of research. I knew the best way I could get it done without having to go into a hospital in the UK. I knew what to do. I knew. And I was just like, I will do this thing. I can't deal. I can't. Lord, I cannot do it. And what God now did, what God now did for me was that he now brought to my remembrance and said, what of all the people you've spoken to? I have at least 3 examples of people I spoke
That's your mentees. Now.
Yes. That I heard. I remember one, another time I had traveled and she called me and she said, auntie, I cannot. I'm going to adopt. I said, no, now. Every child comes with his own blessing. Every child, and he encouraged that. Today, that baby is 10. That baby is 10 or will be 10 soon. And she kept the child. I have those that at the end of the day, they still decide to go ahead with the abortion. But I remember how I've spoken to people that no matter how the child comes with purpose, comes with and what God said to me, so you can't take your own advice. And I just began to realize that if I did it, I will never have the boldness to speak to anybody again. And I know that this is what I'm called to. I know that this is the work I'm called to. I've been doing this since I was in my 20s. I know that this is a ministry I'm called to. So how will you now be the one? You took the easiest way out and you're trying to tell people not to take the easy way out. Which really is not an easy way out if we wait. But for me at that time, it was like...
Yeah.
And the funny thing, it's not like I believe in abortion. I really don't.
Yeah.
I actually believe that abortion is murder. I actually believe so. So I was just... And that was what kept me. Because I was just like, no, you've encouraged others. How will you now be the same person doing that?
So it wasn't like you heard a voice that said, my daughter, don't do it.
God just brought to my memory the people I had spoken to. I said, you cannot be a hypocrite, except you don't mind being a hypocrite. I was just like, for their sake, for the sake of those coming behind, I can't do it. There are parents who have changed their lives because of their children. Like, I'll give another example. My dad used to smoke quite heavily. And we've tried all these years. Daddy, it's not good for your health. And then I had my firstborn, and then I had my first child. And by the next time I saw my dad had stopped smoking. I said, Daddy, what happened? He said, I cannot have a grandchild that will be asking me, Grandpa, why are you blowing fire?
That's quite good.
Do you understand? Why are you blowing fire? And no, I don't want my grandchildren to come and meet me on this. So he stopped. That was his motivation to stop. So there's a way that when you are teaching others, it motivates you to also do the right thing. Because you're thinking of those coming times.
Wow.
Those 3 relationships, very important. First of all, the basis, know God.
Yeah.
After knowing God, then these 3 human relationships get them as well.
Okay, so the place of a mentor, let's start from there. How do you get the right kind of mentor, especially for a young woman?
Okay, so the first thing I tell people is when you're looking for a mentor, number 1, look for somebody who knows God as well. Look out for somebody who will give you godly advice. Because there are all sorts of mentors. But before, Paul said to a certain church, he said, follow me as I follow Christ.
Yeah.
How will they know that he's following Christ if they are not following Christ? So they have to know God. And then they follow him as he follows God. So that should be the first thing you're looking out for in the mentor. Does this person know God? And live by godly principles. Because there are people who don't live they are Christians, but they don't live by godly principles. Well, does this person live by godly principles? That's one. The second thing is, choose a mentor who will... Okay, before that, number 1, don't choose a mentor at the point where you're in trouble. Most times, it's better because you'll be too vulnerable. You'll be open to all sorts. So it's better to always have pre-chosen your mentor in the day of calm when nothing is happening. Find somebody you admire. Find somebody who's...
Where your mind is clear.
Yes.
To make the right kind of judgment.
Exactly. So you're not looking for somebody like you. You're not looking for somebody that will pamper or pander to what you are going through. Choose somebody when your head is clear, when there's no issue. And then that person will still play that same role, even when you now encounter challenges. So we choose. So number 1, choose somebody that knows God. Number 2, choose somebody that allows you to be yourself. Not somebody that the minute you tell them that you're not doing what they're not following their advice. They're like, if you're not following my advice, then I'm taking my hands off your case. There are times that mentors will do that when the case is serious and they know the extent of the seriousness. You understand? I've had cause to do that to somebody. And she begged me and I said, no, I'm done. I'm done at this point. I told you, this is what I need you to do. If you follow me for this period, we didn't even end it. You had gone behind my back to go and take decisions that now undid everything we did. I'm done. So I've had cause to do that. But generally, choose somebody that is open enough to allow you take the decisions.
So that's not controlling.
That is not controlling, exactly.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, even the Bible gives us instructions. This is your place to obey or not to obey. The Lord said, this day have I laid before you. Good. And if you choose you this day, whom will you serve? It's your choice, but just know that it will have consequences. So why should a human being seek to be the controlling force in another human being's life when even God
is not
just like,
himself?
If you come to me and you say, please, just tell me what to do, I will follow your instruction. That's a very, very, it's a very weighty position to give me your life.
Yeah.
Because you're putting the outcome of your life in my hands. I may take it for a while as a mentor, but it shouldn't be what I'm fighting for. So that's the second thing. Number 3, choose somebody that you can trust. As a mentor, for example, I tell people, please don't give me secrets. I beg you in Jesus' name.
Don't give you
secrets.
Okay.
And I'll explain what I mean. I've used examples of people I've spoken to today, but I've not mentioned anybody's name. I've preserved their confidentiality.
Definitely.
Some people are too sensitive to even if they watch the video and they'll be like, you used my case. Who knows that I used it? Nobody. But they're already sensitive that, it's me you were referring to. If you're like that, please just allow me be. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So, because it's clear that what we both define as trust is different.
Yeah.
And it's okay. So choose a mentor that you can trust. That you won't feel like this person is, if you choose me as your mentor now and I come on video now and I say something and you're like, it's me, you were talking about me.
You can't handle it.
Do you understand? That means you don't trust me. And I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about that because that's me. And I'll tell you ahead of time. So choose a mentor you can trust so that you don't have issues. Somebody who you can trust, somebody who you admire, somebody you can respect, so that you don't have issues. Because it's very easy to get to a point where you start knocking heads with somebody that you should be respecting, because you have to be able to respect your mentor. You have to, and there's no respect without trust. So choose somebody that you can trust, that you're sure that I'm okay with the way this person handles things and deals with things.
Wow. Okay. Now, if we are looked at somebody who is looking for a mentor, what are some of those qualities too that a woman who wants to be a mentor to others should have?
I think 2 of the most important things are, number 1, your character should be your highest value. Yes, your highest asset. That's a beautiful word for what I'm looking for. Should be your highest asset. You take care of your character. You have integrity. Your character is so important to you. What's your reputation? Your character. Your reputation is what others say about you. Your character is who you are when nobody's even looking. That should be of the utmost importance to you. That's when things like considering what my mentees will say will be important to me, because if I had done what I wanted to, nobody would have known. Not my husband, except things went wrong. Nobody would have known. And I can come and I will be talking the way I've always spoken. But my character is at stake. So I think for someone who wants to be a mentor, your character should be your highest priority, your biggest assets that you should guard with everything. And of course, to be able to do that, it means you guard your mind, you guard a lot of things around you, but your character, your values. And second thing is your decision-making process. How do you make decisions. Because you can have people with very good character, with poor decision-making skills. Decision-making is a skill. You understand? I remember telling one of my mentees that I don't collect fire from people. I don't collect. If you like, say the whole world is burning like this, and your matter is burning, you want to place it in, I won't take it. Because if I take it from you the same way you are giving to me, both our hands will be burnt and I won't be able to help you. So what I will do is drop it here first. So if you come to me with a big matter, no matter how, the first thing I'll do is calm you down and say, okay, calm down. But that I should give you an answer in that sense, carry the emotion the way I cannot. I won't. I'm not going to carry with the same emotional. I am the voice of reason. So my first thing is say, okay, drop the fire. Calm down. Then I can say, give me 24 hours and then let's talk about it. Because I have to be able to reason through it carefully. But that's something I learned. Normally, I'm a very emotional person and I hate to see people suffer. So if you're suffering, the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh my goodness, this person is suffering. I want to help. I want to do everything. And in doing that, you too will get your fingers burnt. The person is not seeing well. They came and gave it to you. You too, you collected it the way that everybody is going to. Do you understand? So if I'm to be the voice of reason, then my decision-making process has to be different from the average person's own. I have to be able to think differently from the way the average person thinks on a much higher level. I have to be skilled in decision making. So those are the two traits I think are very important for an intending mentor.
Wow. Now let's look at the influence of culture and the environment on young people. Starting with the issue of beauty, good looks. How important is good looks for a woman, and to what extent is this importance in the overall scheme of things?
I always define beauty and all that as a package. And let me give you the example I usually tend to use when I'm talking to young ladies, especially because I have a leadership school, and this is one of the things I take them through. When I'm talking to them, one of the things I tell them is you have to think of your outlook like a package. So, sir, can I ask, what's your favorite meal?
Pounded yam with egusi. Okay.
Do you have any favorite restaurant in Ibadan?
No. I'm more of a home.
Okay. So let's say, your wife was bringing to your office because she knows that, man, this is my husband's favorite food, and she was bringing it in a cooler. And that cooler, on her way, unfortunately, the bag broke and the cooler fell into the gutter. I was now covered in mud and all that. And she brings it to you and says, oh, no, don't worry. It didn't enter. It's sealed tight. Don't worry. Will you eat that food?
Absolutely not.
That's just it. So package yourself. Take care of yourself, because the more attractive the container is, the more people, that's how you attract people to even get to know what is inside. But at the same time, let's say she now packaged this food, oh my goodness, like a food for a king. And she brought it, and somehow that day, for some reason, the yam got burnt. And she still decided that burnt yam is what I'm going to use to make the pounded yam. And she now brought it. The effort was, you know what they say, too much salt. Too much water, too much pepper. Yeah. And she brought it, but the packaging was like, even you, when you saw it, you're like, what is happening today? Did I forget? Is it our anniversary or something? And then you now opened it and you tasted the food. It's a problem. Because the next time you see her bringing the food, the first question you ask is, okay, Sha, hope it's okay. You understand? Yeah. So packaging is like that. It's important, because without it, nobody's going to be interested or even getting to know you, no matter how beautiful your inside is. But the problem is, if your packaging is beautiful and the content is horrible, you can only you can only attract each person once. They will taste it once and they'll be gone. They won't come back. Now, we can always work on improving the packaging, because somebody tastes the food, is like, wow, it's not bad though. This food is nice. So they'll want to try it again, and with time they can now say, yeah, let's improve the packaging. But before you find that one person that is even willing to taste, to be a problem. So that I think that story kind of illustrates the balance of both.
Wow. Many women want to get married, and for whatever reason, they are not able to. They are beautiful, they are good looking, they are well educated, some of them even very well behaved, have the fear of God, but it has not happened at the time they expect it to happen. And then apprehension begins to set in. For a young woman who is experiencing pressure from the surroundings, the environment, because it is believed that she should have gotten married and she has not, how should she handle that kind of period of her life?
First of all, I want to say that people have to understand, young women, that you will never have a period like that again in your life. You understand? I remember that, was it 2 years ago, for the very first time in God knows how long, my husband had traveled and I took my children, traveled for the holiday. I was alone at home completely for 2 weeks. As in,
it felt like bliss.
Yes, just to think that I can't remember when last, because it's either I was in my parents' house. I never lived alone like that. Even in university, you live with people. So living alone, I've never had that experience of being completely on my own, alone like that. And it was surreal. But if it didn't happen, I wouldn't even know what I'm missing. I wouldn't even know what I'm missing. The Bible is very clear about the fact that it says the unmarried person cares only about the things of the Lord. But the married person has plenty of trouble. That's just the truth of it. There are many things that marriage has taken from me. I'm not just saying, not marriage itself, but family life.
Yeah, the responsibilities.
Has taken from me. I used to be a very meditative person. Like, if I wake up at 6 a.m., I may not get out of bed till 9 a.m. And I'm not doing anything. And nobody will know I'm awake because I will face the wall. And I'm just thinking, ruminating, thinking scriptures, thinking issues, just ruminating over things in my head. And I know what that did for me.
We can't try that now.
I don't even have it. I remember one period, I just felt like I was like, I don't even know. I'm not living. I'm just existing, because it's like I'm being pulled here, pulled there every day. I felt like a zombie, like somebody was just pulling me along. I don't have anything. I can't even think. I'm just doing what, from waking the children, bathing the children, school, work, dinner. I can't even think. I don't need a mind to do what I'm doing. I'm just going.
An autopilot.
Yeah, exactly. And I was burning out. We will never have a period like that again in your life. Please enjoy it. One of the things I realize is that when God wants to help a person, the first thing God does for that person is to change the person's perspective about the matter that they are. When God wanted to help Abraham said, "Lord, what I even have is he Eliezer that we..." And God began to show him that no. Beyond that, you'll be a father of many nations. God changed his name, gave him a different perspective on the matter. So he wasn't just thinking about having a child. Because if it was just about having a child, he would have been content with Ishmael.
Yeah.
But it was about having a child of promise. The particular one that God spoke about. So when God wants to, when he came to Mary and said, "You're going to have Jesus," the first thing he did was to change her perspective. Because the first thing she would have been thinking about is, scandal, Lele. You understand? But by the time he gave her a perspective, the scandal didn't matter.
Yeah.
So when God wants to help you, the first thing he will do is to change your mind about it. So whenever I get into a situation and I start getting worried, the first thing I say is, "Lord, show me your perspective on this. Show me how you are looking at it." Because obviously, for me to be troubled, I'm not seeing God's perspective on me. Because God is never troubled. Nothing takes him by surprise. So God, please show me your perspective on this matter. I think that should be the pulse of every young. The minute you start getting agitated, say, "Lord, show me your perspective of this matter." Because there are ways to look at it I know of a woman that she's 40, in her 40s now. She said she used to crave marriage when she was younger. But now, I'm 44 and I've achieved so much. I'm not even sure there's space in my life for marriage again. I'm not sure I want it again. Do you understand? Because things have gone in a different direction. And young ladies, I've spoken to some young ladies, they're like, don't be giving us those type of examples. I attended a program by Mrs. Ibukwawishika, and she was telling us about one of her friends who, the lady was in her 40s and was not married, and she was highly successful in her career. And she was not married. And then she decided she wanted to buy a house in Lekki, a big house. And everybody's like, you can't buy a house, you scare men away, blah, blah, blah. And, but her friends were like, please live your life. Do what you want to do. So she went ahead and bought the house. And she was living her normal life. And about 6 months after she moved into the house, her house was like the second largest house on the street. It was a very big house. And the guy who owned the biggest house lost his wife. And they hadn't been talking or anything, just neighborly greeting. And of course, she went to visit and said, sorry, commiserate with them. But from there, they started the friendship. They eventually got married.
Wow.
You cannot, with the second biggest house, intimidate the guy with the
biggest house on the street.
So, and if she hadn't moved there, she wouldn't even have met the guy.
Yeah.
So, God's calendar is not our calendar. It's you that feels like things must go in a certain way. God has a plan for you. Just ask him, Lord, show me your perspective on this matter. You may not know where it's going to end. But if you are following God part-time, then at least you know you're on the right path. And that's what we should be. That's really what we should be concerned about. And the other thing I'll say is that marriage is one of many problems. Every single person alive has an issue they are going through. It's just that marriage, there are some that are obvious, like marriage, maybe not having a child. Those ones are very obvious because everybody can see. Some people have child, they have marriage, no money. They are struggling and they won't come out and tell you. And every Sunday they are coming and they're looking beautiful in church. They won't tell you anything. Some people have child, they have married, they have money, they have that family is in disarray. That marriage is in disarray. And I'm not even talking about unbelievers, I'm talking about believers. They won't tell you. Some people have health, happy family, everything. Their health is failing. So everybody has their own issues. So don't wear your own like it's the biggest problem in the world just because it's the most obvious, because everybody can see that you're not married. Enjoy. Focus on what you have, not on what you don't have. Because what you have is the seed.
For what you want.
For what you want. Always.
Wow.
So that's it.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's look at the church setting now for a woman deploying gifts and talents. There are different interpretations of different passages of scriptures that people throw at women when it comes to exercising their gifts or their abilities, especially when it has to do with leadership positions within the church. What role can a woman, a young woman, now unmarried woman, play within the church? Is there a limit to which a woman can serve, as a young woman, unmarried woman, can serve within the church? Or should it be that there's a culture that a woman has to submit to within the church for the expression of her gifts and talents?
Okay, so one thing I like to tell people is that God's agenda hardly ever has to do with resetting culture. Hardly ever has to do with it. Jesus didn't come to reset the culture at that time and say, oh, Jews, now we are equal. You fight. No, it's not. They didn't come to do that. Paul didn't come to fight culture. That's why people read scripture and say, oh, Paul was misogynist.
Yeah.
You understand? They'll say he was against women.
Yeah.
But they are looking at him in the context of today's culture, when he was living in a different culture. Most likely the women that were living then would not have said Paul was a misogynist, because for that time he was quite feminist, he was quite accepting of women, and Jesus was too. So God is not particular about changing systems, changing culture or anything, fitting people. What God is interested in is about you achieving your purpose. And people have been doing that for generations.
Even with the culture.
Yes. In the cultures where women were, the Jews have 3 important prayers. They tried to deny it because I had to go and look that. Do they still say those prayers? They'll say, thank God for not making me a Gentile.
Yeah. For not making me.
And the third one was, thank God for not making me a female.
Yeah.
Thank God for not making me a woman. So yes. I now wonder. I was wondering, I said, what do they pray today? Do they still pray that in today's feminist world? They try to gloss over it, but the truth is that it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there. Now, in that kind of culture, there were people like Deborah that arose. How? In that kind of culture, there were people like Jael that killed kings. How? In that kind of culture, the Proverbs 31 woman was there. In a culture where, there were people like Rahab. There were people that stood up and achieved what they were going to achieve, regardless of culture. And for me, as a coach, as a minister, that's why I'm very particular about. I'm not talking to everybody. I'm talking to you, the individual woman. I'm talking to one woman. I'm not talking to everybody. And there are certain things I talk about that I can't even say public because I don't want it to be misconstrued.
Yeah.
But the truth is, it's about you finding your place. I want one woman to take what I've said and take her place in this world. I was reading about Susanna Wesley yesterday. The woman had 19 children.
Yeah.
9 died. Then eventually, a 10th one or so died or something. Eventually, she was left with 8 anyhow. She never preached a sermon, so to speak, in a formal church because she wasn't allowed to be ordained in. I was even surprised. I was like, I thought she lived in like the 19th century. She lived in 16. She was born in 1689 or something like that. And she died in the 18th century. And her husband left her for some time. Because he went to jail for some time. He left her anyway. She was alone with it. Then one time he left her because of some issues. Left her. She wrote him a letter and said that, well, since you have decided to go, there's nothing I can do. You have left they are supposed to be your responsibility, but you've left them with me. Now I have to take care of them. And she formed her own system of taking care of them. And because she's a woman, she cannot preach in church, anything. At different times, they said at different times, the children had to live in different people's homes because her home burned down twice. So she had to scatter her children and put them to live with people twice. But she said she was not satisfied with the education they were receiving. And her husband used to send some pastors that they should come and preach. She wasn't satisfied with the spiritual learning
of the children.
Yes. So on Sunday afternoon, she will now gather all of them. She will now read a psalm, read one of her husband or her father's sermons. She will not even write the sermons. She will read either her husband, because her father was also a minister. Yeah. She will either read her husband's sermon or her father and try and explain it to the children. And then she'll read another psalm, they'll sing some hymns and they'll close. But it became so influential that at a point, 200 people would gather every Sunday afternoon to come and listen in her house. Meanwhile, church on Sunday morning was empty. Churches around on Sunday morning were empty, but 200 people would gather in her house every Sunday afternoon for the lesson she was teaching her children. Was she a preacher? No, she would tell you she was never a preacher. She was never a writer. But her husband wrote a book. Her husband wrote a book. Nobody knows where the book is today. Her meditations, her thoughts about the book of Psalms, about the book of this, and some of her meditations, there were like 4 of them. She wrote them. No, there were more than 4. But I think only 4 survived. Some burnt up with her. One of the houses that burnt up. Those 4, they're still in circulation today. She brought up 2 children that started a church denomination.
Yeah, John Wesley and Charles Wesley.
Yes. And her book, somebody now took it upon himself to gather the manuscripts of her books and put them together. And there's now a volume that contains just her notes, notes that she wrote for herself, her meditations, her musings and all that. And so did she become a preacher or she didn't become a preacher? And that was a time when she wasn't even trying to fight
any culture.
Deborah wasn't trying to fight. In fact, she told the man that, are you sure you want me to go with you? And he said, please, if you are not going, I'm not going. And that time, the Bible says there were no judges in Israel. She went, she would sit under a tree. Did she have a husband? She had a husband. Her husband was mentioned in the Bible. She had a husband.
Yeah.
And I believe that if she were not a submissive woman, nobody would be following her. And men were coming to her for advice. Women, it wasn't allowed. The culture didn't allow it, so to speak, but she was doing it. From history past. I mean, Yoruba history is replete with women who have done great things.
Yeah.
Igbo culture has their own. Hausa culture has its own. Even in African cultures, we have women who are notable for achieving certain things that are not typically allowed for women to do.
In
culturally. So I'm not particular. I don't care about patriarchy. Patriarchy only has power over me to the extent that which I give it. So for me, yes, I believe that advocacy is very important. Some things have been changed through advocacy, but me, no patriarchy can stop me. So you won't see me fighting feminism, fighting this. I don't carry placards. I do what I need to do. I do what I need to do. I'm not interested. And that's how I feel it should be in the church. I got to a church. I saw that this church is traditional. I'm not sure they will accept me in this church. I moved. Thank God there are different expressions.
Yeah.
That it doesn't mean that church is not blessing lives, but I know that I cannot conform to their own way of doing it. So I moved. I cannot be butting heads with the leadership. I went to another church. In that church, the head pastor accepted me. He's not the general overseer of the church. He was a branch pastor where he was the head. He accepted me wholeheartedly. One of the assistant pastors, I noticed that this man has issues with me. Why? Because I wear trousers. I know that I wear trousers when I'm ministering, but you see me in the market, I wear trousers, I wear jeans. And sometimes when I'm not ministering in church, I could have worn trousers. That was before they actually, I actually became a full-time, part of the praise team then. So all those, and I remember him preaching one day, that's the assistant pastor, saying, no matter how talented you are, if you cannot say you are critical, you wear trousers in church. I just knew that I'm going to cause trouble here.
Yeah.
And I cannot do without wearing my trousers. I'm sorry. Because it's part of that's like half of my wardrobe you want me to throw. You understand? So at some point I will wear the trousers and I will offend somebody. I moved. And God planted me in a place where at that place I was even like, Pastor, this one is even the head pastor, the owner, the general overseer, or the founder of the church. And he was like, please come and do something. I said, Pastor, please, I came to this church to listen. I don't want to do anything. He said, lie. We cannot have you in this church and you will not do something. Do you understand? So find a space where you are needed. Don't go to a church. Don't go to...
You'll be fighting and...
Go to the one... Thank God there are plenty of expressions of ministry. And if nobody gives you a platform, there's YouTube. If you want to minister to others, create your own platform. There's social media, there's YouTube today. But you will find somewhere to... You will find... If God is placing a work in your hands, you will find somewhere to express it.
Wow. That's very profound. Wow. Now let's look at a haunting past. In John chapter 4, Jesus Christ was speaking to the Samaritan woman, and he made reference to the fact that the man had, I think about 5 husbands or so prior to that. Everybody has a past, and the past could be in varying degrees, and the impact of that past on the present and possibly on the future for some women could also vary. How does a woman who has had a fairly ugly past that seems to be haunting her present and projecting into her future, how does she handle that kind of experience in her life in such a way that she can have the kind of future that God designs for her.
I'm very happy that you brought in that last part, that God designs for her. So if God has designed a future for you, then it's going to come to pass, irrespective of your past. It's many times we ourselves are the ones that block the way, because we are so caught up in our past that we cannot let it go enough for God to create a new future. Now, let's even start with the example you used in John 4. The woman, I said this somewhere, and everybody's like, no, it's not true. But the truth is that the Bible says, if you read that story, that she went back into the city, and she told the men of that city that, come and see a man that told me all I ever knew. She told the men, my own, this is my own, just, it's not there, but I'm drawing in logically. This is my own inference into scriptures. That the women of that city were like, I beg you, this woman.
You want to catch our men again.
Usually, there are many reasons. Usually, women went to the well early in the morning, and they went in groups. She went alone. At noon, when nobody's likely to be there.
And we talking to her.
Well, most likely she was ostracized. They didn't trust her. 5 husbands before you come and take my own.
You seem to be skilled at
you understand? So it's like, I beg. So they just ostracized her. When she got back into this, it's the men she was more used to. The men of that city, she was well acquainted. She told them, come and see one man I met. So he told me everything. And, there was somebody I listened to that kind of infused, that inferred that, she was trying to flirt with Jesus. Because when she was like, our father said this, how did you, how are you going to, sir? I perceive you're just trying to. But of course, he kept autocorrect, taking back to the conversation. But the truth is that, that was her nature. She was more comfortable around the men, clearly, for obvious reasons.
Yes, I agree.
But she was the one that turned that city. In God's, we only know her today because of the role that she played in spreading the gospel into that town of Samaria. Maybe we wouldn't have known her. Now, in God's agenda, she had value.
In spite of her past.
It wasn't even a question. It wasn't even a question. Jesus used it to show her that, I know you. But she was the reason why that city turned. She was the reason why that city turned. Some of us, by unnecessary, low self-esteem that we built from problems, then we handle the problem craftily. You find somebody, if you want to get married and the man that you found a man, I think I did a video on this, that, you've changed, but you have a past. And you are now living with the fear that all this, maybe you used to be a bad girl, and you came to church, you've met Jesus, you really know Jesus, but, in today's time, they say your body count is high, you are well known in those circles. And now you're marrying a church boy. What do you do? And you're scared that if I tell him, won't he run? If he runs, it's not the one for you. That's not the future God designed for you. Because the future God designed for you will say, it's even good. Come and teach me. Do you understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that your experience will become an asset for him. Or he won't care. He won't even see it. It's like, so. These are some of the practical ways, or the practical reasons why women get scared. Women with the past get scared of certain things that, I've done this, and nobody's going to accept me, so they lie. They hide. I'm not saying you should go out and just say
flashing it everywhere.
You understand? But at the same time, be yourself. We should not have, the Bible talks about some people who esteem themselves more highly than they ought. It didn't say they shouldn't esteem themselves, but they esteem themselves more highly than they ought. Don't have that one. Don't have overly high self-esteem. Don't have pride. Don't have low self-esteem, which, as far as I'm concerned, is also a form of pride.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't have low self-esteem. Have God esteem. Esteem yourself the way God esteems you. See yourself in the light of, God can use anybody. If you look at the life of David, God can use, once you submit yourself to the Lord will bring to pass. It's not you that is going to bring it to pass. It's God that will take all the ingredients. You gave him Maggi, salt. Somebody had 1 bottle of oil, 2 cubes of Maggi, and half a spoon of rice. I want to make jollof rice. It's God that knows how he can multiply that rice to match the Maggi and the oil that you have. That, okay, these are the ingredients you have. I'll make something beautiful out of it. It's God that knows how to do that. So yours is to just esteem yourself the way God sees you. That I am a person for whom Christ died. God loves me. Irrespective of what I am not. Some people, because of their past, they're like, nobody can ever love me. So they continue in it. Some people remain in prostitution because they're like, I've already been spoiled anyway. Nobody can want me. Let me go continue. And they continue. So esteem yourself the way God esteems you. See it that no matter what I've done, God loves me. And my life can become something beautiful. That is what that's how God sees you. See yourself that way. The making of it is God that will do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm already projecting in my mind next time you're going to come back, because the kind of questions that I have, the truckload of them, I'm not sure we can finish them on this podcast. But I know that there's a whole lot that people need to hear, especially young women. And God has really given you the grace to pass this wisdom across. Let's look at, for little children, from what age should a girl be groomed to start behaving like a responsible woman? There are those who think that for a certain age, just let them be, leave them to do the things that they want to do, let them give expression to themselves. And there are those who start too early, who steal the childhood from that little girl. So at what point should one start decisively training a little girl to become a woman?
I believe that not even just for little girls, but for children in general. You from birth, you start training them for the person they are going to become in 20 years, in 30 years. But the levels of training is what is different. I remember a time that my first daughter, she was 5 at the time, and she asked me, Mommy, who am I going to marry? I was like, hey, Jesus, what kind of question is this? No, how will I know who I'm going to marry? In my mind, I'm like, will you now start teaching a 5-year-old about God's leading? And but the truth is that there are different, you teach, don't ever tell a lie. Always tell the truth. But the extent of the truth is what differs. I can tell you the truth without telling you the whole truth. So at that time, maybe I said to her, when the time comes, God will show us who you should marry. That's all you need to know. And she was satisfied with that answer. Another time she came, she asked me that, how am I going to have a baby? Will I now start telling her about it? No, now. So I'm like, see, the one thing I wanted to instill in her mind at that time was that having babies goes with marriage. So that was the one thing I told her. I was like, when you are married, then babies come. Then God shows us how. You understand? Something like that. So people get married, and then when they are married, they have babies. And that satisfied her little mind at that time. She went. When she's 8 and she comes back and asks the question, I can teach her a little more. So the truth will always be the truth. But I don't have to uncover the whole thing. I only uncover the parts of it that her mind can understand handle at that time. And in that regard, I'm very big on self-awareness, self-discovery, because it's only a person with a strong sense of identity, a woman with a strong sense of self-identity that can take certain decisions and remain firm on them. You have to be strong in your value system. But to be strong in your value system, you have to have a strong sense of identity.
Yeah.
However, having too much, being too self-aware also prevents, it also has its own downside. So you'll find out that maybe a woman who is over 40 or over 30 finds it more difficult to get married. It's not just about her biological clock and that men are not coming. It's because she has grown to an age where she can't take nonsense. There are some things you can't. See, I'm too matured for certain kinds of games.
Yeah.
Now, that's why it's easier to get married when you're younger, because I tell people that it takes some naivety to get married as a young woman.
Yeah.
The guy will be telling you sweet nonsense, you will be getting the sweet nonsense. Like, oh, I love the nonsense. I know it's nonsense, but I love it.
Yeah.
When you now get married, but by the time you get married now, the stakes are too high for you not to take the nonsense. Because by that time, you're like, Lord, if I had known. You understand? If I had known, maybe I won't be here. But I'm already here, so let's make it work, So it takes a bit of naivety. So if I take all this self-awareness of an adult and put it in an 8-year-old, you're destroying that child.
That's true. Very true.
You're destroying that child.
Very true.
So there are levels of the truth that you reveal. What I want to teach a young child is be yourself. Don't let anybody, be open to expressing your mind. Be kind to others. Be tolerant. Listen to others. But if anybody is forcing you not to be yourself, you don't have to. It doesn't mean the person is a bad person. But let's tell the truth. Some people are bad people. You understand? Now, as a young girl, that teaching of you have to accept nonsense for you to get married is what made them get into some very troubling marriages that they have no business being in, because they feel like there's no 100% good person. But some things are nonsense. And some men, I'm sorry, this is not a man versus woman thing, but the reason why it's important is that men are the ones in authority in a home. So no matter how bad a man is, unfortunately, he comes and he takes authority. He has the authority. He's not given authority. So, a leader can be a dictator. Yeah. He can be any kind of leader. He can be a good leader or a bad leader, but he's still the leader. And I'm still forced, unfortunately, to be submissive to him somehow. So, where a woman's power is in marriage is that she chooses the right person to submit to. But some men are just bad leaders. They just don't know how. Yeah. So, I agree. But those kind of men, many times, they look for a certain type of girl.
Yeah. The good ones.
They know the type of girl. Because if they go for somebody who is like them,
it'll be trouble.
It'll be fire for fire. Do you understand? So, if you don't teach a girl to be able to be strong in herself, she will fall for that kind of bad. Exactly. Yeah. But at the same time, no man is 100% perfect. You are not going to get a perfect person. So if every little fault, you are so picky about every little fault, which is something that happens as you grow older and as you become more self-aware, like, no, we are not on the same lane. I beg, go your way. I'll go my way. So that's why it becomes more difficult. No. At the first sign of trouble, it's like, I beg, just stay. I've been living all these years with no trouble. Trouble be far from me. Stay your own. I'll stay my own. So they can't handle that nonsense. But there's because of where they are, because of the age, the experience, there are some things they will still know how to temper it. And at some point they'll be like, okay, I think this guy has maybe 90% of what I need, or 95 or whatever. They can score it and say, okay, I can live with this one. But if you give all that power and self-awareness to a young girl, it's 100. She'll be looking for 100 or nothing. She can't temper it. She doesn't know how to manage and balance things out. So we give them measured amounts of the truth. We give them measured amounts of preparation. It's not everything. Part of the reason why I believe that part of the reason why a lot of young ladies are finding it hard to get married today is because of the advent of social media. We have more stories going out, and people are becoming more scared that, I bet it's better for me to just remain. So they're becoming more aware too quickly of some of the things. Some of the things that happened in marriage are regular problems. They happen to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But because they are hearing, I mean,
and then they have entered their psyche
do you
in a
understand? So
measure that it shouldn't.
it shouldn't, exactly. So they just stay away. And so we now have that problem where you have so many young girls, I mean, that are not married, who should be able to get married, that are not married, and they keep on, they try, no, as in nobody's good enough. So some of them are even saying, you know what, I'm not interested anymore.
Wow.
So measured amounts of truth.
That time. Wow. Wow. As we begin to round up, man, even though you've spoken about it in a roundabout way before, but within the context of this question, I want you to address this. The level of relationship, the nature of relationship between a young woman and a young man. What should it be like? Now, from the side of the woman now, because there are women who get overly familiar with men, and there are those who are overly withdrawn, if that's the word that I can use. So what should be the nature of, let me say, friendship now, or the relationship between single young women and young men that is safe and will not impact badly on them? I don't know if I communicated my question.
Yes, you did. You did. And it's a very real issue. So, and I'm happy to talk about it because I think I used to be on that side before. Like I said, I don't really have many, I have few, I'm the kind of person that forms few friendships and forms them deep. Rather than, so all the remaining wide friendships that I had when I was younger, I would always say, yeah, like guys. Guys are real. Guys are, so I prefer to be surrounded by guys and everything. But there is a danger to that as well. Because guys are guys and women are women. And there are already some things that are, I believe, let me just start from here, that from my experience, from what I've gone through, from observing people, from, everything, I believe that there is no real platonic friendship between a man or a guy and a lady. Yes, there can be on a general level, but once it starts getting too close, there'll be issues. It's either the male will start getting ideas, or you yourself will start getting ideas, or even if none of you get ideas, people will get ideas for you. So I remember when I was in university, and excuse me, and we would have these long strikes and holidays and things like that. And we were a bunch of friends, and then maybe like 4 guys and like 4 ladies. We're all just friends, and we're all quite close. We just hang out together. And there were no mobile phones or anything, but we all had landlines. And many times when the vacations are like that, I would go to Port Harcourt and stay with my dad. And he used to work where he used to work. They used to give them access to phone. We could use the phone for a long period. So the few people that have phones, the few of your friends that have landlines as well, those are the people you call. Yeah. So I remember that within our group, there was a friend of mine that had a phone. It was a guy. So one of us, so I would just call. It started like that. I would just call and be like, and then we just, which is normal. We would just normally if we were all together. And then it became like every night. Because if he doesn't call, I'll call. And then I started looking for his girl. But there was nothing. We were just our normal friends. But his mom started thinking
something was
things. The other, so which I didn't know. Even on my side, recently I was talking to my sister, and she was not like, I mentioned something. She was not like, oh, is it? I was like, oh, no, I don't even know when last. She was not like, I know you used to be close to me. And I was just like, can you see what I'm saying? These are the lingering effects. And my sister is younger than me. You understand? And I remember when we came back to school, we went to his house for his birthday here in Ibadan, and his mom was like, oh, and she was now treating me special. And I said, so that's what I'm saying, that even if you don't have ideas, some of you don't have ideas, people will have ideas for you. When she now started, I now started thinking that has the guy been telling his mom, because I knew he was,
very close to the mom.
Very close to his mom. I mean, she was a single parent. So I know you're like, the guy started telling her things. So you'll be wondering, the position now becomes awkward. It didn't happen once. It happened to, I at least have at least 2 examples of that happened to me personally. So when I see young ladies that say, no, me I prefer guy friends, I'm just like, you guys don't understand it yet. And because it passed, it may not seem so dangerous, but I've seen dangerous dimensions.
Yeah.
I know of a couple that they were friends. And the guy's family really liked the girl, well brought up girl. And the girl's family too thought, this guy is nice. And before you know what's happening, their mothers were talking to each other. I'm serious.
Without
they were talking to each other. The mothers became friends. And they're like, oh yeah, so when are you getting married? When are we going to plan wedding? It started like a joke, like joke. Wedding was being planned. I'm serious.
Wow.
And eventually, like 2 weeks to the wedding, the guy is like, I never asked this girl out. So he went to the pastor that was going to where they were doing their counseling, and he spoke to the pastor. This is how things went. And the pastor now says, well, you guys are going to have to talk about it and take a decision. So he calls in the lady. And at that time, the lady, by that time, she was begging, she was crying and kneeling down and begging the guy. And they went ahead with the wedding.
She was begging the guy that
this time, we can't, don't do this to me. And so the guy, he too couldn't stand this. And he went ahead with the wedding. So I don't know about now. This was years ago, but at least I know that for at least 2 years, that marriage was problematic. They did not consummate the marriage. Wow. Things were, it was just problematic for at least 2 years. Because the guy is like, I don't like you like that. I'm not attracted to you like that. So sometimes it sounds like you're just telling stories, but things happen.
Yeah.
So keep things well defined. Just the boundary is where things stop being well defined. When you're always hanging out with somebody, the question to ask yourself is, if this guy had a girlfriend, how would she feel about, or a wife, how would she feel about his relationship with me? Or if I have a husband or a boyfriend, how would he feel about my relationship with this person? When we're always on the phone, we're always talking, we're alwa's hanging out, would my boyfriend or my husband be comfortable with that? If not, then you're too close. That's a simple analogy.
Wow. Thank you so much. You're coming back. There's no doubt about it, because there's a lot that we still need to touch. But I wouldn't know if there's something that God has laid in your heart that you would want to talk about. Maybe we've not mentioned in the course of this interview that you would like to share with the audience, especially young women.
Okay, so I think I've said it before, but I think it's just important to re-emphasize that there is no greater gift that you can give to yourself as a young woman than to know God and to be a friend of God. There are some ladies that is me that coined this name. I call them the in-between girls. In-between girls suffer. The in-between girls are either church girls who I don't want to be too churchy. I want to be, somewhere in between. Yes. Awesome. That's one set of in-between girls. The other set of in-between girls are the girls that had that rough past and are now coming into the church. You see, the truth is that the best thing for anybody, where you are, remain. Choose a side. The people in between, they're the ones that suffer. Because if you're a church girl, half church, half, you don't understand the way the games roll. You don't.
That's the game outside.
Yes. You don't really understand the game of the world. And you will get beaten by it. So that's where you find ladies in their 20s. They don't know anything about contraception. They don't know anything about anything. They go, 27-year-old ladies, 30-year-old ladies that have no clue of that rough side of life. And you now go, you get pregnant, then it now becomes murky waters because you didn't know how to handle yourself. See, a 20-year-old girl in that life, she knows how to arrange herself that she won't get pregnant.
Even 15.
Yes. They know how to arrange themselves. I'm not saying that's good.
Yes.
But you also find out that girls that are transitioning from that side are now coming to the other side. They also have issues because that's where they also having issues. Oh, I had a past. It would have been better for them if they had no past. Or if they remained in that side where they are. Of course, we are praying for them to come to the Lord. But when they come, they have they have an issue. So why are you, as somebody who is named by the name of the Lord, now trying to play a little to that side? You will suffer. And I think the best way to drive this point home is an example that a Christian author who has gone to be with the Lord, Charles Stanley, wrote in one of his books. He said, nobody stands on the edge of a high mountain and dangles one leg over the side and says, after all, I have not yet fallen onto the other side. I'm still on the mountain. No. You don't want to fall. So you will stay, even if they say, no, don't worry, just stay here. No,
say no.
Let me stand. Let me know if possible, let me not even climb the mountain. But if I'm here, let me stand in the middle. There's no chance of me falling over. That's what we do logically when it comes to our physical life. But with our spiritual life, we're always trying to see how close we can get to the edge without falling over. Meanwhile, if you stay in the good middle, there's no chance of you falling over.
Wow.
That's what I would say. Please pick a side. Pick the Lord's side. That would be my parting words.
Thank you so much. I'm sure the audience would have been dropping in the comments that you should come back again. And I'm assuring them that very soon they will see your face again on this platform. Thank you so much for being a blessing to us. I know you have a YouTube channel, so I'm going to collect the channel URL, and it's going to be in the description for those who watch this content. They will have access to the life transforming content that's on your channel as well. And it's my prayer that God will continue to multiply His grace upon your life and cause it to be more and more effective, provide you with even greater platforms for you to reach more people for Him. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Larry.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. So thank you so much, our audience, for joining us on today's episode of Stewards of Grace. I would encourage you to share this with others so that they can be blessed the same way you've been blessed in today's episode. Until the next time, God bless you and continue to be faithful as a steward of the grace of God.